Ooh, we're live. We're live. Hello, everyone who is here. Probably not too many people here just yet. I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to get in here. Thank you to everyone for following our Knowles 24/7 YouTube account. Appreciate it. We've gotten like 700 followers in just a little bit less than a week. So really appreciate all you guys jumping in and following and supporting us. Newton Knoll, I owe you. Yeah, Newton Knoll came in clutch and followed us with 2 accounts. So everyone can go ahead and create multiple YouTube accounts and really just, you know, gas up the numbers. That would be much appreciated. All right, give me a second here, guys. I'm going to go ahead and load this up into our Knowles 24/7 page. Make sure people are watching there, the subscribers for the people. Oh, yes, I take this YouTube video and give it back to you, the people. That was my Bane impersonation. So we are going to be talking about depth chart today. FSU released its depth chart. And yeah, that's kind of what I want to go over is take your questions on the depth chart that FSU released for the Notre Dame game, kind of give you some insights. Maybe we'll do a little cocktail hour here as well. Ooh, Kensaw has so many questions about the depth chart. So Kensaw, here we go. Oh, holy bourbon. Were you doing Gandalf? No, that was my Bane impersonation. It was a little Gandalf-y, though. Ah, yes, we take this and give it back to you, the people. Bane, Batman, maybe. All right, let me make sure this is on my Twitter feed as well. It's all pretty new for us. We're trying to figure it out a little bit. So bear with me, please. Oh, look, there it is. Live stream on my Twitter feed as well. So, all right, someone's asking Bakers, bourbon behind me. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of bourbon. A lot of bourbon. We got Early Times, which if you listen to On the Bench, you know I'm a fan of. Thank you. Shirt compliment. Appreciate it. I actually was watching The Office right before this. So if you guys are enjoying a cocktail, let me know what you're enjoying, what you're going to have tonight. I'm going to do a little bit of a pour of, it's not bourbon, so forgive me, but I think it's appropriate since FSU's playing the Fighting Irish this week. It is Redbreast cask strength. It is an exquisite Irish whiskey. One of my favorite. Redbreast in general is really good with everything that it does. But this cask strength is at 57.6% alcohol by volume. It's really good. It's all right, Kestner. You don't have to drink to enjoy this. Ooh, Coach Oates, Sonone Hive. Here we go. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. All right, we got people coming in, talking a little depth chart. See behind me here, we got a lot of oars to talk about. A lot of oars as we get into the depth chart. So let's start off with the biggest oar. That's at quarterback. FSU listed both Mackenzie Milton and Jordan Travis as the co-starters. Technically, Jordan Travis was ahead of Mackenzie Milton. And I don't know if you want to read too much into that, but I do think there's usually significance with as much as there can be on this piece of paper that is very subject to change. I think there is some significance of who's listed first, but for those of you guys who've been following along on the bench at Knowles 24/7, you know that we've kind of indicated for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, that this is going to be a fairly close battle. That we weren't sure FSU was going to announce a starter before the Notre Dame game. I don't think there's much of a reason to at this point. I think Mike Norvell is probably doing a little bit of gamesmanship at this point. Like I don't think if they didn't announce it on the depth chart here, maybe tomorrow in his press conference he'll announce it, but I don't know. If they didn't announce it by now, I don't think you're going to get an announcement until the game starts on Sunday, which makes sense. But Jordan Travis has had a really good camp, really good preseason, and that's growing off of what was a strong spring for him where he was pretty consistent as a passer. He's only gotten better as a passer, making some big-time throws in camp. Mackenzie Milton has had some ups and downs. He's considered more of a quote-unquote gamer. We've talked about that, and I don't know how much value you want to place into someone being a gamer. Now, Mike Norvell knows firsthand what Mackenzie Milton can do in a game. That was also a couple of years ago. So, regardless, I think FSU feels decent about what it has at quarterback, no matter who takes the first snap against Notre Dame. And guys, I tell you this, I'm going to keep saying it. I think you're going to see both quarterbacks play throughout the course of the season. So the starter is going to be important, but I don't know if it's going to be everything because we're going to see guys coming in and out of the lineup. So let's see. I'm going to start answering some questions here for you guys. Ooh, someone's got Larceny Barrel Proof C920. That's one Starink. I love the batch A for theirs, for the Larceny Barrel Proof. Really good stuff. I have not had the C batch, though. I've had the B, and I liked it. I thought the A was awesome. All right. Where do I rank on the 24/7 depth chart? Let's see. Yeah. So maybe, I mean, if we're doing Knowles 24/7, I think Kushny's at the very top just because he's so consistent, and it's very valuable to have someone who's extremely consistent at the top. Then I'm going to go with Newberg. Just he's been around the longest of anyone. Obviously, very creative, even without his long flowing locks. Someone who's very valuable to our website. He's really the face of the website, so important. And then Zach Blostein. Zach is an absolute animal on the recruiting trail. And then I'll put myself at the bottom of the depth chart. But you know what? Just like FSU with the quarterback situation right now, it's going to take multiple people to get it through the season here. All right. Alec Pope asks, what do you think about Cortez Andrews making the 2 deep? It's a good question. So the linebacker depth chart in general was really, really interesting. At stud, we had Amari Gainer and Jadarius Green-McKnight. Stud is the position that Amari Gainer played last year. Now he's been playing both will and stud in preseason. He's going to be someone I think they use all over the field. He played a lot of will linebacker in the spring, but he's someone whose versatility they want to take advantage of. Jadarius Green-McKnight moves from safety to linebacker about midway through camp. Someone they like his upside, his athleticism, his physicality as kind of a roaming linebacker, versatile hybrid type of guy. So I think those 2 guys are listed as studs, but I think you can see them playing different positions on the field. Now going to the will linebacker spot, Kalen DeLoach gets the nod as the likely starter. He's had a really good preseason camp, super athletic, someone who lost a little bit of confidence last season. He started the season against Georgia Tech, didn't play great, didn't play particularly fast. Amari Gainer ends up beating him out 4 reps at the stud position as the season progresses, and they kind of fade the stud position away, go with more nickel, more 5 defensive back looks. But Kalen DeLoach has done a really nice job rebounding, responding to the adversity last year, and positioning himself to play this year. Does he have any of the yips like he did last season opener and regress? We'll see. I don't blame people for being skeptical if he does take a step back, but man, he's been really, really, really good in the preseason, and he's gotten better as we've watched him gaining more confidence. So that brings us to Cortez Andrews and the question that was asked. Am I surprised? A little bit. Now, he's come on late in preseason camp, so like if you asked me a week ago if he was going to make the 2 deep, I probably would have told you yes, just based on kind of what we were observing at practice. But if you had asked me in the beginning of preseason camp if I thought Cortez Andrews was going to crack the 2 deep, no. I thought Jaleel McRae was someone that they had kind of pushed in the offseason to try to kind of salvage where he was at this point in his career and get him in to make significant contributions and reps, and really didn't seize and grasp the opportunity the way I thought he would. Cortez Andrews brings physicality, brings toughness inside. He's 6'1", 245 pounds, willing to stick his nose in there, be aggressive. Not great in space, but you're going to need to stop the run and be aggressive against Notre Dame's rushing attack. So that's going to be important. The 2 other linebackers, this is one of the other big surprises. If you would have told me this at the beginning of camp, I wouldn't have guessed this. DJ Lundy gets the nod over Steven Dix Jr. DJ Lundy's had a really, really, really good preseason. Let's see. Derek, with DLT kicking down to guard, does that say more about Scott and Washington being ready or Lucas not? Derek, that's a really good question. Devontae Love-Taylor is placed at right guard. So from left to right, the starting lineup is going to be, as of now on paper, this is all subject to change, obviously, but it's going to be Robert Scott at left tackle. Him and Darius Washington switched tackle spots from last season. So Robert Scott at left tackle, Dylan Gibbons at left guard, Maurice Smith at center, Devontae Love-Taylor at right guard, and Darius Washington at right tackle. Devontae Love-Taylor was kind of the wild card of this group in the sense that he can probably play. Well, not probably play. We know he can effectively play 4 different positions if he's at 100%. He is working his way back from a knee injury, but he's practiced and he's gotten progressively better in camp. Where he was going to line up was going to kind of allow them to fill in what they think is their best 5 at other spots. Maurice Smith was almost assured to start at center, but everyone else was kind of up for grabs of where they were going to play. I think to answer your question directly, I think it says more about what they need at the tackle spots than it does Dante Lucas, who's actually had a pretty good preseason camp, and I expect him to play a lot this year. Devontae Love-Taylor can always kick out to right tackle if Darius Washington struggles. But they only have a few tackle types on the roster, whereas they have more guard and interior lineman types and bodies. So you get your two most athletic young players in Robert Scott and Darius Washington on the edges. You stick them next to pretty experienced, reliable, savvy veterans in Devontae Love-Taylor and Dylan Gibbons. Those are two transfers, two guys who were probably 23 years old, 22 years old. Gibbons is a fifth-year junior, I believe, and Devontae Love-Taylor is a sixth-year senior. So those are guys who are adults. They're grown men, and you put them next to younger players to kind of help stabilize them a little bit. I think that makes sense, especially early on against Notre Dame, which the Fighting Irish have a really, really, really good defensive front. That's probably the strength of their team, even though they lose a little bit from what they had last year. I think they get 6 out of their top 8 rotational players at defensive end and defensive tackle back. So going with experience at the guard spots kind of allows you to maximize the rest of the offensive line, if that makes sense. Let's see. Sticking with the offensive line, Alec Pope asked, Norvell said he felt good with about 8 to 9 offensive linemen besides for a start. Which 4 besides the starters is he referring to? So the 5 starters we alluded to, right? Dante Lucas as probably the top reserve is definitely a 6. Bavion Johnson, like what he's done this offseason as a center guard type, he's listed at 2 different spots on the 2 deep at center and guard. He would be 7. And then Brady Scott is someone who's performed fairly well at multiple roles and is a veteran and not going to light the world on fire, but maybe stable. You'll know what you get with him. He would be at least 8. So that's at least 8 they probably feel good about right there. And then they kind of going to rely on some younger guys to maybe come along as the season progresses, whether that's Zane Herring at guard spot, Lloyd Willis at left tackle, has done some nice things in preseason camp, but still a year away, I think, from legitimately contributing. And then Thomas Schrader, got to see, I guess, what happens with Thomas Schrader and when he's 100% after he had an injury in the spring. They haven't really announced a timeline for him. Noel Yakin asks, what am I sipping on? Red Breast Cask Strength. It is delicious. It's my favorite Irish whiskey out there. It's awesome. FSU's playing the Irish this week, so I thought that would be an appropriate cocktail hour beverage to enjoy. Seminole Firewater 93. Ooh, I got Firewater too right now. Dix, that's Steven Dix, has no problem gaining weight. Maybe he can rush the passer. Steven Dix Jr. being a reserve, I think is something that we weren't expecting exiting the spring. And then he had a really great offseason. He certainly looks the part. Listen, Steven Dix Jr. is going to play. Like, even though he's not listed as a starter right now, he's someone who's going to get a lot of reps with DJ Lundy, and you're going to need both of them to be successful, especially this week against Notre Dame with what's expected to be, pretty straightforward, grounded out rushing attack. You're going to need both of those guys to be physical, to be aggressive. So, Steven Dix Jr. has some liabilities athletically that we've seen to date in terms of being able to turn and run and go sideline to sideline. And that's probably why he's not starting right now. And he still needs to kind of get more comfortable at filling gaps and be more instinctive against the run. But you are going to need him throughout the course of the season. So even though he's not a starter, and that is noteworthy, I think it says a lot about DJ Lundy and how he's looked this preseason. At 255 pounds, he's moving pretty well. But also I think they were hopeful that Steven Dix Jr. was going to take a step further than maybe he has. Ooh, someone's got as Brandon McDonald's got some Smoke Wagon Small Batch. That is, I do another podcast, Bourbon on a Budget. We rank different bourbons with a formula that I have, and Smoke Wagon Small Batch is the top among our list. It's my favorite. It's my favorite bourbon at the price point right now. It's awesome. All right. Brandon T1906 asks, what are your expectations for B-Rod this year? Think you get anything from him or Jordan Young? So Brandon is asking about the wide receiver position. Let's go into that real quick. I'm going to look it up here. I haven't found a way to screen share in a way that's effective yet here on the StreamYard. So if any StreamYard experts have a good tip for showing a screenshot, because that'd be cool if I could show you the depth chart right now. But like I said, it's still a work in progress. So at wide receiver, we got Keyshawn Helton and Darren Williamson. Darren Williamson has been really, really, really solid this preseason. A nice surprise, but Keyshawn Helton has been great. So that's one wide receiver spot. The next one, Ontario Wilson, not a surprise that he's starting. He was the leading returning receiver. Very solid, reliable player. and then Joshua Burrell behind him. I think we like Joshua Burrell as someone who can help out a lot as a perimeter blocker as a true freshman. He's 6'2", 224 pounds, looks every bit of it, very thick, very jacked up and strong, and uses his physicality well. You can tell he's very mature physically and mentally for a freshman. The final wide receiver spot we have there is Andrew Parchment. Not a surprise, he's brought in from Kansas to be your number one potentially. And then Malik Mclean or Kentron Potier. Malik Mclean, I think, is going to get a lot of reps as a true freshman. Mike Norvell said he's earned the opportunity to play a lot as a rookie, and he gives you something that no one else on the roster really does with his length and size and catch radius outside. So missing from that two deep would be Brian Robinson and Jordan Young, as Brandon asked about. Listen, Jordan Young is a veteran at this point. He's been in the program for what? Is this going on year 4? Year 3 or year 4? Year 4, I believe. And Jordan Young shows a ton of athleticism. The abusement park, I mean, his senior highlight tape is some of the best highlights I've ever seen, especially for someone who didn't have a whole lot of highlight beforehand. But Jordan Young's also still inconsistent, if I'm being honest. He'll make some really great splash plays in practice, like freaky, athletic, acrobatic catches. And then he'll have a lapse, a drops, or a drop. He'll have the case of the drops is dropsies, drops. I have really only had one sip. It's just me being stupid. He's just not super consistent right now. And until he is, it's tough to put him over younger players who are also going to be experiencing similar growing pains. You know what I mean? If the veteran receiver isn't being super consistent right now in the field, you probably better off allocating those reps and those growing pains to younger players. For Brian Robinson, he's someone who just hasn't been 100% available or healthy really since he's been at Florida State. And it's only been through last spring. Last year, he wasn't 100% at times during the season. And then preseason camp, he hasn't been fully available at times. And I want to get into details there, specifics. But he's someone who, has a lot of potential. He was the highest ranked player in the 2020 class, I believe, outside of Damori Tate. And just hasn't quite been able to stay on the field. So this year, I don't know what to expect from Brian Robinson. It is too early to write him off long-term, though. Let's see. Who's this? Oh, Briley. You were here before anyone else, so thank you for joining us. You asked, does Briggs' size give you pause since you've seen him in person? I was a bit surprised by his list of weight, and I'm concerned he'll get pushed around a bit too much to put pressure on the QBs. So you're talking about Dennis Briggs. Dennis Briggs, as you guys may know, was the player who was given the honor to smash the rock with the sledgehammer. It's Mike Norvell's tradition to do after spring, after the off-season workouts, after preseason camp. It's a player, and then after games, after wins. It's basically you're closing a chapter on the previous week or weeks of hard work. Dennis Briggs got that for what he did in the preseason. And guys, he was awesome this preseason. Now, chicken or the egg, is the offensive line still work in progress, or is the defensive line, and specifically Dennis Briggs, dominant? It could be a little bit of both, I suppose. We'll see what happens when the season gets here. But Dennis Briggs was really, really good. Remember, this is someone who opted out last season, returned to the team against North Carolina, actually played like significant reps in his first week back. Like he got like 20 or so reps in that game because Corey Durden got hurt or got ejected and had to leave. And Dennis Briggs plays a lot in what's FSU's signature win of a pretty dismal season, and wasn't in great shape. But credit for like being there as an effort player, for being someone who was willing to jump into the mix right away, despite not being 100% in shape after missing time from opting out. Dennis Briggs was solid last season, given all those things. He had this full off season to work out, to get in really good shape. He is lean. He is muscular. I know the questions about him being a little undersized at 278. FSU kind of likes the faster, twitchier defensive linemen, especially the defensive tackles. Like they're okay with that. They want to do a lot of stunts. They want to be aggressive, have multiple fronts. And someone like Dennis Briggs gives you the ability to play kind of an edge role, to play inside and then attack the pocket as a pass rusher. I know it's not ideal weight for a defensive tackle, but he plays with a lot of strength. He plays with a lot of quickness as a result of not being 300 plus pounds. Dennis is really good. He's had a really good preseason. He's someone who has been solid for his entire career, and I think has a chance to really take the next step. Let's see. Chad, I thought you were sponsored by the Nolecast. I thought so too, Chad. I thought so too. That is something that Nolecast has talked about. Let's see. Maybe still pending. November 5th asks, Brenda, did you ever finish the pizza bracket? No, I have not. I'm working on it. I had Momo's the other day. I got my review ready to go for that. I'm going to mix up the bracket a little bit because a couple places have shut down during the pandemic. Barnaby's is no longer there. I'm not going to review Gumby's anymore because it's called Pizza Face, and that's a disgusting name. I'm not going to eat at an establishment called Pizza Face. Or maybe it's Pizza Mouth. Either way, I'm not going to do that. But I did have the COVID back in early July, and that's made me like super inflamed and not feel super great sometimes. So like dairy's a no-go. Alcohol is supposed to be a no-go too, but I have to make some decisions here every now and then. So pizza bracket will return soon enough because I'm feeling a little bit better. Nolecast, we decided to go in another direction. Thank you, Ingram. I appreciate it. Ingram, what are you drinking tonight? I'm assuming that's Ingram and not Bud. What are you enjoying tonight? A little scotch? I got a little Irish whiskey right here, and it's delightful. Delightful. Let's see. Brandon F asks, best place for a quick lunch before the game. I mean, I know the Nolecast is going to want me to say Madison Social, right? And that is actually probably a pretty great place to go before the game just because of the location. If you're on the north side of town coming into town, really nice little barbecue spot. If you're getting off at the 90 exit, the Mahan exit, just go north about a mile or two going up toward Monticello. It's called the Red Shed. I really like their barbecue. It's outdoors. They got folky music playing all the time, live bands. It's really good. It's fun. And it's good quality barbecue too. So it's convenient as well. So let's go to the depth chart a little bit more here. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I could address an actual question that you guys have about the depth chart. Oh, Timothy Cardi. Timmy, how's it going? Are you drinking anything tonight, Timmy? I know you probably are. Enjoying a fine bourbon, I'm sure. Let's see. When is Emmett Rice expected back? Oh, the favorite Knowles 24/7 message board question. When is Emmett Rice expected back? Emmett Rice is participating. He's been around the team. He's been engaged. It's something that we've reported since this offseason that he has been super engaged and around the team. He's working and increasing his workload consistently. I don't know the exact time for when they expect him back. I don't think they have an exact date set for that. I think the first month of the season, like 4 games in, is reasonable amount of time to kind of start asking and expecting him to maybe be ready. But we don't have a direct word on that right now. Let's see. Dane, that's an inappropriate question. I'm not going to put that up there. But thank you. See Snow Space FL asks, how in the world is Jordan Young still not in the 2 deep? As mentioned earlier, he is a little on the inconsistent side. He's got a lot of athleticism, a lot of physical gifts. Consistently catching the ball is still something he hasn't really mastered yet. And until then, I don't think they're going to give him a ton of reps. All right, let's see. Riley asks, is Travis Jay's extensive special teams role based on consistency, or is he in there because he brings something special? Travis Jay, in my estimation, is the best athlete that FSU has on its roster. We saw him show some signs of being a special returner last season before his injury. Remember, he got dinged up about 2 or 3 games into the season. Was never quite 100% again. It was an ankle or lower leg injury. I think it was a sprain, but he was never really 100% again that year. Those sprains can take a little while to get back from. So I would say this. I think Travis Jay with the ball in his hands is dynamic. I think if he's healthy, which he is this preseason, he's looked great at cornerback. He's currently a co-starter at cornerback with Jerry and Jones. I expect Travis to get a lot of reps in week 1. He might be the best player in the secondary, to be honest. But putting him at special teams at both punt returner and kickoff returner makes a ton of sense because he has a chance to make something special happen when there's nothing there. His agility, his strength, he's someone who can break tackles, whether it's with cutting and breaking ankles or breaking tackles because he's strong and big. He's someone who can be special. So yeah, I think, he's been consistent in fielding the ball during practice, if that's what you're asking, but he's someone who has some playmaking ability as well. And you kind of pepper in Corey Wren, Jakai Douglas as kickoff returners. Those are both really speedy, maybe undersized guys, but a kickoff returner doesn't really matter a ton, right? You just need speed there. And both of those guys have the speed to pop off big plays. So I think that's what you're going to see on the kickoff return area of the game on Sunday. Let's see. What bottle are you bringing out when we kick Notre Dame's ass? I'll do something really special if FSU starts the season 1-0. There, Ingram, I'm putting that out there. The Kush completionist says you are a legend. You're welcome. All right, Craig asks, who do you think is the biggest snub from the depth chart? The biggest snub. Well, so I'll be honest, because we're able to see practice and they don't want us reporting on depth chart stuff, which I think is reasonable if we're going to be there at practice and not give away too much of the goods. I don't think there was a ton that really surprised me that finally came out from the depth chart. So I'll be honest, there wasn't a ton that in that final depth chart that came out that was surprising based on what we had seen. But if you had asked me, say, in the preseason of someone who I thought would be in the two deep, I think Jaleel McRae would have been someone that would have had a pretty good shot at it. And I don't think it's a snub, but I think the other guys ahead of him were more consistent. So I wouldn't consider that necessarily a quote unquote snub. Let's see. On the offensive line, there wasn't anything really surprising. Yeah, tight end, because it only listed 2 players at one position, nothing really shocking there. Running back, nothing super surprising. No, there just wasn't a ton that was surprising, to be honest, based on what we saw. I will say I expected one of the freshman defensive ends, whether it was Byron Turner or Patrick Payton, to maybe be on the 2 deep or maybe in an or situation and be guys who could play situationally, maybe George Wilson. So I thought maybe there was a chance we'd see one of those guys on the 2 deep or 2.5 deep if it's an or situation. That ended up not really happening. So that's not a huge surprise, but a little bit of a surprise. Keith Gordon says running back surprised me. So Keith, let's get into running back here real quick. Feel free to elaborate what surprised you about running back. So at the running back spot, and there's going to be a running back and a tailback, the way the depth chart works for FSU. The running back is more the traditional single back, the guy you expect to be more of an every down kind of guy, lines up in the backfield with the quarterback. Jayshon Corbin's number 1, Trayshawn Ward's number 2. That's not a huge surprise to me based on what we've seen in the preseason. Jayshon Corbin is just super steady, super reliable, does everything well. Physical runner. I've really liked the way he's finished runs in preseason. He's got a little bit of juice, not a home run threat, but someone who can get 20-yard gain if you give him a little bit of a crease. Trayshawn Ward, on the other hand, is more of that speedy. You give him a crease and he could take 5-6 yard gain and break a tackle and turn it into a touchdown really, really quickly. So he's a former walk-on who's looked really good. The tailback spot, Lawrence Toafili as a starter, not a huge surprise to me. Lawrence Toafili's got a ton of versatility. That's something they want in that tailback spot, whether it's going to be someone who you have to be able to catch the ball and run the ball fairly well there. And he does both at a high level, really explosive based on what he did last year. Then Jakai Douglas, he's someone who was listed as a wide receiver. They put him at the tailback spot. Again, you have to be able to catch the ball and run the ball as a tailback in this offense because they're going to move you all over the place, backfield, slot, maybe even out wide. Jakai Douglas, we already know he can run a little bit with the ball in his hands, pretty compact runner, but he also showed against Duke last year too. He can also be a threat as a receiver. And then DJ Williams as an or. DJ's probably more of a power back, and you'll probably see him in 2-back stuff with Jayshon Corbin or Trayshawn Ward based on the indication here of him being an or with the tailback. Keith elaborates that he thought Trayshawn would have been a tailback and DJ at running back. Yeah, that makes sense based on the skill sets, but I think Trayshawn Ward is someone that they're going to have to give design like multiple series a game to because he is a potential game breaker and he is so damn solid as a runner. I know that feels like hyperbole that we're saying the former walk-on has been really good, but through spring and preseason camp, I don't think anyone hits more big plays than he does in the backfield. So you're going to have to give him a series or two, at least a game to kind of get going and see what he can do. Let's see. Zach Keene asks, is there anything that caught your eye personally about the depth chart? So Zach, the 2 things that were surprises somewhat to me, especially based on what we were starting preseason with, I would say 1 is the offensive line. Wasn't sure where Devontae Love-Taylor was going to go. him going at right guard kind of presents clarity with Robert Scott at left tackle, Darius Washington at right tackle. Everything else kind of falls into place. That was one of them. That's still subject to change. Like, if Dante Lucas comes out and has a great week of practice, like you can move Devontae Love Taylor out to right tackle, have Darius be a swing tackle, and have Dante Lucas at right guard. Like that's possible. So that could still happen. But that was one of the things I was interested to see. I was intrigued by. In terms of surprise, like, yeah, if you told me at the beginning of the year that your two starting inside linebackers were going to be, sorry, at the beginning of the year, I mean, beginning of preseason camp, if you told me your two starting inside linebackers were going to be Kalen DeLoach and DJ Lundy, no, I would have been surprised by that if you told me that. So seeing them kind of ascend in preseason camp, I wasn't surprised to see that result today, but not something I would have put money on back in the beginning of August. Let's see. No, I don't want to put that out there. That's not nice about Gibbons. All right, this is a little bit nicer. See snow space. Florida. Did Gibbons win the job or Lucas lose it? Dante Lucas was solid in preseason camp. He showed some maturity, I think, as the year went on, or as the weeks went on. Excuse me, it hasn't been a year. It's been a month. Feels like a year, though. We've been out there almost every day. A little exhausting, but happy to be out there. He's been okay. He's been solid. I think he's gotten in better shape as the year's gone on. I'm talking about since July, so the last 2 months he's gotten in better shape. And Dylan Gibbons is just solid. I think that's the main thing I would say about why we're seeing Dylan as a starter at this point in the season, because I think he's going to be steady. He's going to know the playbook. He's going to bring a level of physicality, of experience, even though he's only has a couple career starts. He's been at a really good program and developed at a high level at Notre Dame. So I think it's more Dylan kind of ascending than it was Dante Lucas not really taking a step. Again, I think Dante probably is going to play at least somewhat in Notre Dame and then a lot throughout the course of the season, excuse me. All right, let's see here. The Irish whiskey sometimes to me tastes like pineapple, like a pineapple juice. The good ones do, the rich ones. They all taste like vanilla and shortbread. Even if it's like Jameson, kind of thin, but this being a cast strength Redbreast, it's like a pineapple upside down cake. It's really good. All right. John asks, who comes out for the first series, Jordan Travis or Mackenzie Milton? Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it, John? Man, I think I can make a case for both of them. Maybe they put up both of them at once, and it's a 2 quarterback system like they had against Miami last year when Jordan Travis was in the slot and moving all over the place. No, I don't think we'll see that for the first series. I think, man, it's a coin flip. If it were me, I'll say what I would do. I think Jordan Travis has been the most consistent passer in the spring and in preseason camp. I think he gives you an extra dimension with his elite mobility. Mackenzie Milton can still move around, make no mistake. Maybe not quite what he can do pre-injury, but he can move. Jordan Travis, to me, I think is who I would go with right now. He's just been very consistent, very steady. As a passer, we know what he can do as a runner. I think his teammates like him. I just feel like Jordan's a safer bet right now. I think the offense has the highest upside with Mackenzie Milton with what he can do with his arm talent and his improvisational skills. But I think right now you know what you have with Jordan Travis, and he's just shown a ton of growth, and I think it's deserving to take early reps in the season opener. All right, Robert Laster asks, do you think Jermaine Johnson gets 10-plus sacks this year? That's a lot of sacks to get in a season. It's been a little while since we've seen 10 sacks. What was it, Brian Burns? Did Burns have 10? DeMarcus Walker definitely had double-digit back in 2016. Did Burns have double-digit sacks? Regardless, it's been a little while. Jermaine Johnson, I think, is going to get, I would set like the over-under at about 7.5. He's going to be effective. He's going to be really good. Getting Keir Thomas, who's the starter listed opposite of him, getting Keir Thomas to emerge this preseason has been a really, really pleasant surprise to me. Someone who didn't practice a ton in the spring, so he wasn't 100%. He's someone's going to help out a lot this year. It's going to be a very consistent inside-outside threat. I think he's going to set the edge well. He's going to have the versatility to rush the quarterback from different spots. He's going to help Jermaine Johnson out a ton to have that running mate. I still think, though, that Jermaine Johnson brings the most juice off the edge, and offenses are going to tailor things around to try to slow him down. Chipping with the tight end, keeping a running back back there, moving protections around and slides around to try to keep him from getting to the quarterback. So I think Jermaine Johnson's going to be productive. I think he's going to be the most productive pass rusher they've had in probably a couple of years. I'm not willing to say 10 sacks right now. I do think that's a lot. All right, a couple more questions here, guys, and then I'm old. I go to bed like at 9 o'clock, so a couple more here. Ambitious Beyond asks, would you start McClain? He seems to be the best wide receiver overall. So, Ambitious, you're asking about Malik Mclean. Would I start him? Listen, I'm not going to get hung up on whether he starts or not at wide receiver. There's going to be so many different rotations and packages at wide receiver that I don't think that's going to matter a ton. Would I give him starting caliber reps? Would I give him, maybe 40 snaps, 30 snaps, get half of the wide receiver reps in a game? Yeah, you betcha I would. I think he brings something that, again, no one else really does, which is deep speed in a 6'4" frame and the ability to win 50-50 balls and be really good at adjusting to back shoulder throws. Kentron Podia can do that some, but doesn't bring the deep speed that McLean has. Darren Williamson has flashed at times this preseason, but still kind of an unknown. We haven't seen him in the game yet either. So I think him and Malik McLean both have good chances to play a lot. McLean's upside is pretty absurd, though. I know some people on the staff think he's a future NFL player. You can see why when you watch him. So whether it's starting the game off or getting, again, 30 or so snaps, I think you'll see him play a lot this year. Keith asks, this is a good question. What does our defensive special package look like, third and long, dime? So I don't want to get into too much detail in that just because I don't want to divulge what's happening in practice and get myself in trouble and lose access. You did mention Marcus Kushny. The defensive end transfer is listed as a backup right now from the FCS level. Marcus is going to play a lot, and I think he's going to bring a lot of value in a sub-package role, and I thought that even before preseason camp because he has such good get-off, good burst, high motor, not super big, but pretty willing to be physical. He's going to help out in sub-package roles. But what I will say about sub-package, to get any more detail, is that FSU has really worked to replenish the depth at defensive end and the secondary this offseason. They've allocated scholarships to transfers at both spots, and they've allocated a ton of scholarships for true freshmen coming in. That's going to lead to a lot of versatility, a lot of substitutions, a lot of rotations and mixing and matching to find out ideal guys in ideal situations throughout the course of the season with both the DBs and the defensive ends. That allows for some flexibility with linebackers and who you use in certain situations as well. So to answer your question, Keith, I think FSU is going to get creative with sub packages. Marcus Kushny will surely be in some of those. Let's see. Eugene Crust asks, Brendan, do you think Kalen DeLoach will be able to hold his own in the box and versus the run game? So, Eugene, I do think Kalen DeLoach has shown the willingness to be physical and be aggressive this preseason. That's a huge part of the equation, right? Now he is about 210 pounds, so I do think there are some limitations to being able to take on a lead block or stick his nose in there consistently and win that matchup every single time against a 310-pounder. But I think where the value of Kalen DeLoach lies is the coverage ability and then the ability to finish off runs or passes that go to the perimeter. He's able to fly to the boundary and then to be physical and run into guys and sniff out plays and stop them dead in their tracks when plays bounce outside. So in that willingness to be physical, that's going to be a part of his game. That's what we've seen in the preseason. If that carries over to the season, that's an if right now. But if it does happen, I wouldn't be surprised because he has shown that so far in camp that he is willing to be physical in various situations that help them out. Let's see. Ooh, Paul, this is a great question. Do you prefer Josh with long hair, short hair, or don't care? I would say I don't care, but here's the thing. It was way too long before, and now it's way too short. I'd rather be in a place where his hair doesn't evoke an emotion one way or the other or make me surprised. Like, oh, man, that's really short. You have it buzzed. Or yeah, man, you look like 24/7 Jesus right now. Like, I'd rather be somewhere in between. So I can't say that I don't care, but if he just had a normal haircut, I don't think I would care. Does that make sense? Carrie Dino says hi. What up, Carrie? Dino? Oh, you're Eugene. Oh, I know who you are now. How about that? Let's see. A couple more questions. Nolecast, I'm going to give you guys a plug. Thank you for paying to be our sponsor for this podcast. $10,000 an episode is really generous. Thanks, Ingram. Thanks, Bud. Nolecast is going live, not like. Someone's gotten into the sauce early, I can tell. For a snap count draft, if you have a desire for more similar content. So yeah, I'm going to take this to like 8:45, and you got to chill for 15 minutes or so. Then go check out the Nolecast, sponsor of On the Bench. Let's see. M. Harrison asks, what's the word on Chambray Jackson? Feel like I haven't heard much about him. So Chambray is one of the freshman defensive linemen that I thought would have a chance to maybe crack like the 2.5 deep. But right now, I think he projects more as a run stuffing, edge setting defensive end than a pass rushing one right now. I think he's someone who eventually grows into being a defensive tackle with his frame and his current size. And with that in mind, I think the need really is to find pass rushing types. Okay, so a George Wilson, a Patrick Payton, Byron Turner even have more pass rush juice, more twitch off the edge than Chambray does. So I think those guys are more likely to help out early on this season just because, if you can only do one thing relatively well, that's the thing you need to do at this stage where they're going to be at the depth chart. Let's see. Couple more questions on the depth chart. Come on, guys, fire them out. You got me here for like 5 more minutes. Let's go. Depth chart questions. I see some season prediction stuff. I will answer that towards the end. Let's see. We haven't talked about the secondary. If anyone wants me to get into the DBs, I can do that. I think we've talked about every other position group really to some extent or another. This has been good. Been productive. Let's see. Here we go. Noel Cliff asks, I feel like Jamie Robinson will be the best player on defense. Am I wrong? I don't think he'll be the best player. So I guess technically you are wrong in my opinion, but I don't think you're far off. I don't think it's far-fetched to think that Jamie is going to be a highly impactful player. I think we had him in the top 10 or right on the cusp of it in our most important player position preview series. I think Jermaine Johnson's your best defensive player from a physical standpoint, from the position he plays. Like, he provides the most value at defensive end. I think Kier Thomas is in that conversation. And then after that, I think Travis Jay. And then the next tier to me is probably Jamie Robinson, because I think he could play either up top safety or nickel at a pretty high level. I think he's really consistent. And we saw that in spring. He kind of just does the right thing over and over again. So that's going to be very valuable. So he'll probably be one of the top 4 or 5 defenders on the roster. Yeah, he'll be important. Daniel Stevens, otherwise known as, well, I won't say what he's known as on our message board, but I know. What up, Daniel? How many tight ends do you think we end up using? 50 million. 50 million tight ends. They're going to use a lot of tight ends. Cam McDonald's number 1 on the depth chart. Jordan Wilson's number 2. Cam's going to be the flex move around tight end. Jordan Wilson, has shown some athleticism to where you can move him around, but I think his value is going to be as more of an inline blocker. But I think you will see Preston Daniels spell Jordan Wilson some as a blocking tight end throughout the course of the season. Wyatt Rector will probably be the primary backup to Cam McDonald and give Cam some reps off as well, and be able to be someone who kind of moves around and has decent receiving skills. Jackson West is someone I'm really, really high on long term. I think maybe a little bit slower to start the year, but as he gets more accustomed to the college game, I really like Jackson West. So yeah, if you saw 5 or 6 tight ends get snaps this season, maybe Marcus Douglas as the year goes on, he's shown some promise. That wouldn't surprise me. Don't ever forget about Rector, Daniel. Don't do that. Ambitious Beyond asks, are you high on Malcolm Ray? He has good spring, but is not getting any love. I will correct you. We did put in our practice report the other day that he had a really great couple practices in a row, kind of ascending. I like Malcolm Ray. I think he's a good rotational piece for FSU as we're going to end up being. I don't view him as a starter right now, or I don't even know about long-term. But I do think he's someone who can help out and give you 20 snaps a game and play for a couple series and be solid, be productive. His upside to me is kind of like a who's Marvin Jones' nephew? Freddie Jones. Remember him a couple years ago? Was just kind of very solid rotational player. Maybe not someone you want to take 40 to 50 snaps a game, but half of that, yeah, like he'll be valuable in that role. And you need him to right now because you know what you have with Fabian Lovett, with Robert Cooper, with Dennis Briggs. I think those three guys are pretty solid at defensive tackle. You need one more to kind of at least have that four-man rotation. Malcolm Ray, to me, probably is the top among that group. Joshua Farmer, long-term, I like a lot, but he's a true freshman who's had to put on 20, 30 pounds in a year. There's going to be some growing pains, literally physically, with him as such a young guy, given that he's never played defensive tackle before. And then Jarrett Jackson is someone who looks the part. He still has to kind of put it together. But right now, I think Malcolm Ray is kind of your best bet as a rotational piece defensive tackle. Chad asks, who has the better year, Dent or Jay? It's funny, those two guys kind of switched around, right? Travis Jay was the field safety last year, and he now moves to a boundary cornerback role. Akeem Dent was the boundary cornerback last year. He moves back to free safety, which is where he played as a true freshman. I'll be honest, I thought he was going to be much better in his natural position at cornerback. That's Akeem Dent. But he really struggled last year. I was going to be a little harsher. He had a hard year last year. He gave up a NFL passer rating of 108 and change per target, which is not very good. That puts him like in the bottom 5th percentile nationally. That's not where you want to be. Everything that I've seen in preseason, anyone that I've talked to, anyone who's talked about Akeem Dent has really gushed about his confidence, his progress at safety. He's playing fast. He's playing physical. I'm skeptical to buy too much into the hype, but the hype is coming from a place of there is some reality to it. Like he is practicing at a really high level. If he carries that into the regular season, if he plays in the regular season as how he's practiced, he's going to have a really nice year. That being said, Travis Jay has emerged as one of the best players on the defense, in my opinion, maybe one of the best players on the roster. He is a badass. He is aggressive. He is physical outside. He has really good turn and run abilities. If he does not have a good season, I will be extremely disappointed because he's just performed so well and has looked so natural at that cornerback spot. He brings a ton to the secondary and really looks like a potential NFL guy. No Cliff asked about the team vaccination percentage. I don't have an update on that. I know they thought they were moving in the right direction. I wasn't sure if they were going to get to 85% before the season started. I think they'll get to 85% at some point during the season, but we'll ask Mike Norvell about it tomorrow. He will speak at a press conference, and it's probably time to get an update on that. Let's see. Right, wrapping up here, just a minute or two more. Nathan asks, thoughts on Fitzgerald at kicker? You could have said Fitzpatrick, and you would have gotten it past me because I always want to call him Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzgerald has had a really, really good preseason camp. I'm sure he's missed one or two field goals. I personally haven't seen him miss one or two field goals. I haven't seen him miss any. So, again, I'm sure he's missed some, but from what I've seen and when we've been paying attention closely to him in team situations, I don't think I've seen him miss. He's been really good. We'll see what happens when the lights turned on, but he's deserved this starting spot. Now, Parker Growthhouse has been good too. I think I've only heard of one missed field goal for him that I know of. He's been solid as well from short and from range. I think Parker will be the kickoff specialist, and I think you'll see Ryan Fitzgerald / Fitzpatrick at one of the as the every down place kicker. He'll be the place kicker, whether that's field goals or extra points. He'll be the guy who does the kicking duty there. All right. Any more questions before I run, everyone? Ladies and gentlemen, fellas and women who've watched me tonight, I really appreciate it. This has been fun. Maybe this is something that we'll do weekly or every couple weeks or so. I can pour a opponent appropriate whiskey, talk about it, let you guys talk about what you have in your collection, talk a little football. Chris says, thank you for jumping on. You're welcome. I appreciate everyone listening, watching. This has been fun. Check out the Nolecast, the new title sponsor of On the Bench. Check them out at 9:00 coming up. Again, $10,000 an episode is really generous. Thank you, Bud and Ingram. Really appreciate it. All right, folks, take care. Hopefully this was informative and fun on the depth chart. Check out On the Bench later this week. We're going to have Zach Blostein on with Josh Newberg to preview a huge recruiting weekend. I think Christine and I will do an episode as well, just to kind of preview the Notre Dame game. All right, everyone, thanks for joining me here. Brendan Sonnone, sticking the landing. Damn, I was doing so well before I acted like an ass.